Welcome to our second episode with Bob McFarland from Milford, Michigan. Bob is an electrician. He's also a sports star from Milford High School, a lifelong resident of Milford since 1959 anyway. Spent some time at Western Michigan University and spent some time in Afghanistan as well, which is one of the things we're going to talk about here as we get into this episode. But when last we spoke, Bob, you were telling us about your experience in the military down in Panama.
Mm-hmm.
When you got to Panama, was it pretty much as you expected it to be, or were there some surprises?
It was, number one, warm and muggy. I had never seen where it would rain so hard that a street would be flooded like within 10-15 minutes. A little story about Panama. I was on guard duty one time, and I saw we'd walk around the perimeter of this fence. I don't know what was inside the fence, but just part of being in the military, right? And I knew these bats were flying around, and one took a dive at me and got stuck in the fence, and I beat it with the butt of my rifle. But they were big, and they were called like vampire bats. I don't know if that was a real name for them, but they were bigger bats. And we had the helmets on and all that stuff. But, yeah, I'll never forget that. But that was quite interesting.
You didn't see any dark-complected guys in dark suits?
No.
Oh, just thought I'd ask.
No.
So pretty much what was your job while you were down there?
As a battalion crypto clerk, we had these SOIs, which is signal operational instructions. So people that had radios would go on a certain frequency and all that. So if there was a conflict or attack of some sort, they would have the proper radio proceedings and sequence for codes like. And I was 13 months in Panama, and like I said, half of that time I was pretty much playing basketball, so I'm very fortunate.
Right. Were there any threats that they might send you over to the war zone? Or?
No. A lot of there is a Green Beret camp in Panama too, Fort. Can't think of it.
That's
right.
okay. Go ahead.
But most of them would. That's who we did the jungle training with, and Fort Gulag, and that's who we did a lot of the jungle training for or with, and a lot of their companies and battalions would go over to Vietnam and Green Beret. So.
Now, your wife is a lady that you've known since, what, 3rd or 4th grade or something like that. At what point did you folks get married?
I knew her in 4th grade, knew her in high school, then we sort of went ways. She got married with another gentleman, and I also got married. And then we both were separated and divorced, and then I was playing softball at the proving grounds, and her brother, who I know, Bill, I said to him, "Hey, Bill, what's your sister doing nowadays?" And he said, "Hey, well, she's single, and why don't you give her a call?" Long story short, we got talking to her and I, and that was about 35 years ago.
So that's when you were working for General Motors.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's back up a little bit when you were reaching the end of your tour in Panama. What were they starting to tell you about what your next move was going to be?
Well, I knew because of the time frame that I'd be going home. So my 13 months over there, and that was my time to...
Were you married at this time?
No, I was not.
Okay, go ahead.
And then I also got an early out of like 4 months to go to college, and that's when I went to Western.
How did you manage to finagle that? I mean, was the war still going on at that time?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
But they were offering early outs for those eligible to go to college.
Okay.
And early outs could range from like 3 to 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So
you went to
I went to Western, and then I got drafted, and then
That's okay.
Wayne State.
Oh, you went to Wayne State.
I took classes there for
That's where your grandfather taught.
Yes. And so I got an early out to go to Wayne State, and I took a few classes, and then that didn't work out because of the drive back and forth from Milford, and I just wasn't ready for school.
Yeah. Were you working at that time as well? Or?
No. But then I did start to work, and I started working at this place called Dishmaster in Pontiac. And then from there I got a call to GM Proving Grounds in Milford, which was close to home.
Were you kind of grasping at straws, or did you have something in mind that you thought you'd like to pursue?
I didn't know at that time. No.
Okay.
I think the war had my mind going every which way.
Yeah.
Not knowing what was going on, and then I knew I wanted to try to further my education, but that wasn't working. So.
What time was when did your first marriage come into the picture?
I was 22, and we were married 10 years, my first wife, and we had my son Patrick, and then.
Were you married at all when you were in Vietnam, or in Panama?
No, I was not.
Okay, you got married the first time after you returned to the States?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we lived in Milford for a while, and then we lived in Fenton, and then after that I lived by myself in a house, rented a house in Milford while I was going to the Proving Ground, working there.
Were you always working at the Proving Grounds while you were with General Motors?
Yes, well, until the last year. I worked down at Pontiac SPO.
What got you interested in being an electrician?
Well, what got me interested in it was that I was going to get laid off or had the chance to join the apprenticeship.
Oh, what were you doing before that?
I was working at the dynamometers, where we put test cars on a dyno, and they were cutting back, and I was told that if I wanted to continue on, I could become apprentice in the electrical department. I said, sure. And lo and behold, here I am, 35 years later, still an electrician. So.
Yeah. What kinds of projects did they have you working on out at the Proving Ground in your new capacity?
Pretty much maintenance. We maintain all the facilities. So if they had issues with power, lights, or needed extra plugs somewhere, or street lights, pole lights in the parking lots, pretty much all preventive maintenance and preventive maintenance.
Do you find that was pretty good duty?
Oh, it was excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, they call GM Proving Grounds a retirement facility, right? And it's a pretty nice place to work. And being so close to home, it was nice.
So you cruised your way through GM until you reached your ability to retire.
Pretty much, yes.
From them.
They did away with the maintenance groups out there, and Johnson Control came in at the Proving Ground.
Okay.
We were non-union. We were the only non-union skilled trades of all General Motors worldwide.
Yeah.
So we had, we were getting paid union wages and had salaried benefits. So we had pretty good, the best of both worlds.
I see.
But when they decided to move us, we didn't have, a union to say no. Yeah. And so that's why the last year I was supervising over at SPO.
Okay. Got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The Canine Stray Rescue League began with one woman's dog and a dream. In 1990, Carol Powell lost her dog and searched multiple animal control centers to find him. When she did so, she discovered perfectly healthy dogs needlessly euthanized due to limited space and decided to do something about it. She traveled to multiple animal control centers to buy dogs on death row, and then sat outside supermarkets giving them away to healthy and loving homes. Around this time, Powell bought the property where Canine Stray Rescue resides to this day from a friend. There was only one building to house the dogs, and the rest remained outside in the cold. Flash forward to 2001 in Flint, when current president of the Canine Stray Rescue League, Lori Stevenson, met Carol Powell. Both passionate about dog rescue, they united their efforts and traveled across Genesee County to various animal controls to save dogs from euthanization. Until they found proper families, they often kept the dogs in their own homes. The numbers of rescue dogs grew, and Canine Stray Rescue League began to take shape. Powell and Stevenson ran it themselves with a board of directors. As their funding and popularity grew, they were able to purchase more housing for the dogs. Today, Carol Powell is retired, and keeping the dream alive, Lori Stevenson heads the canine group. She takes in dogs from all over Michigan and from states that border Ohio. Due to connections with a friend in Puerto Rico, she is able to take in strays there, still suffering from the aftermath of the hurricanes in 2017. Canine runs primarily on donations, so they're imperative to the League's survival. When asked how her rescue missions impact society, Stevenson replied that if we teach our children to have compassion for dogs, they'll treat everyone in their life with that same compassion and charity.
Back with Bob McFarland, we were talking about your career with General Motors and how you reached a point where you decided you wanted to try something in addition to that. So tell us how you got into your business.
Most of the electricians in at the proving grounds, GM proving grounds, we were master electricians. And as master electricians, you're allowed to have your contractor's license, and which means you can do outside work legally. You have to have insurance, of course, and stuff like that. But it was a lot of times just weekends. If we weren't working at the proving grounds, we'd maybe get together and do some jobs here and there. If I had a job and I needed help, I would get the other electricians to help out. Good example, when we had our house built, 25 years ago, I had everything pretty much prepped, and we had to work a Saturday at GM, and 4 vans, we all had our own work vans or trucks, but pulled up into the house we have now, and within like 4 hours that entire house was roughed in electrically. I mean, all I had to supply was pizza and beer.
Nice to have good friends, huh?
Yeah, I mean, in 4 hours we had that whole house roughed in electrically. So, yeah, I mean, it was extra money. I knew that I wouldn't always work for General Motors, and maybe that would be something I could rely on after the fact.
So how long was it between the time you started your business and you retired from General Motors?
Well, I started my business in about 1988, and from then, and I retired in 2008, so about 20 years of the time I was working at General Motors, I had my little business on the side.
And had you involved your son yet at that time?
No, he didn't start until maybe 2000. Patrick's 36, the youngest one. I had a couple of the older ones. They helped out, but they weren't involved yet.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Then an interesting thing came along, where you actually went to your wife and talked to her about working elsewhere, shall we say.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Believe it or not, I was driving home in my van, and on the radio I heard they were advertising needing master electricians in Afghanistan. They were talking about very lucrative employment, and they were in need of master electricians. So I went home, and I had thought about it and thinking about it. I said something to my wife Charlene. I says, "What do you think about me going to Afghanistan to work?" "You're not going to Afghanistan. Are you crazy?" So that was sort of pushed aside. And then I kept hearing the ads on the radio and stuff like that. And I got thinking more and more about it. I had got paid on a pretty good sized job, and financially, and it set me back because I still had payments on material and stuff like that, and my credit was getting so. I thought here was a chance to clean everything up.
Were you with your first wife at this time? Or?
No.
No. Okay, gotcha.
Second wife. And and I was only going to do it for a year. and they kept saying, it's almost all tax-free money, blah, 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 blah. But we talked about it, prayed about it, and decided, okay, I'm going to go.
Well, okay.
And when you're flying from Dubai to Afghanistan and all you see is mountains and deserts, you're thinking to yourself, what am I doing? And I talked to other people going over there, and they thought the same thing. They're thinking, what am I getting myself into? Because
you'd never been there before.
No.
And Panama wasn't quite like that.
No, and you didn't have to worry about the Taliban or anything like that in Panama. But no, it was a concern.
Who were you actually working for?
The company's called Fluor, F-L-U-O-R, and they're out of Houston. Big government contracting subsidiary. And
They're probably still over there doing something.
They are. In fact, I get calls from them quite often to go work maybe elsewhere. I've even gotten calls from other companies to go back to Afghanistan, but I'm done with it. I've had my share of it. But yeah, I was only going to do 1 year of it, and as it turned out, I did 2. Even before I left, they offered me a pretty good size raise to stay and oversee 4 bases. And I said, no, thank you. I've had enough.
Okay, so you're flying into that part of the world. The terrain is something totally unfamiliar to you. Once you actually landed, where was the first place you landed over there?
Bagram Air Force Base.
Okay.
Well, on my way over from
On your way over, what was the first place?
Dubai.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, oh, this isn't too bad.
Well, that's kind of a fancy place.
It is. Beautiful. Beautiful. And then from Dubai, you fly into Bagram Air Force Base, and you're flying over a little bit of water here and there, but desert, and then you're flying over mountains. And
do they give you any kind of a briefing before you even go there?
Oh, yeah.
What to expect and cautions about certain things?
For
I mean,
sure.
what kind of stuff they talk to you about?
We had 3 weeks of training in Greenville, South Carolina. And they put you all through situations that might occur, what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do. That's where we also had our physicals and shots and stuff like that. But yeah, we were well briefed that lights out at certain time, restricted areas. And,
Was there a connection between your company and the armed forces at all?
Oh, for sure.
How did that work?
We maintain the military, their tents, the eating facilities, the hospitals, all their facilities is what we maintain to make it safe electrically, so no one would get electrocuted. So our goal was to, if there was any issues or they were missing power, lacking power, we had to be there and correct it, the issue and get them power. If something major happened, we'd have to get big generators over to a certain area. A good example, someone dug the power feeds for the dining facilities. Well, for the military, that's a big thing to keep their military personnel satisfied with food. I mean, so that was a priority. We worked all night that night with floodlights just to get these generators up and running to supply power to the dining facility.
Got to take a break. We always have to take a break when we're getting into the most interesting part. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Back with Bob McFarland. You're in Afghanistan. Let's back up just a little bit to when you first arrived in Afghanistan and got off that plane. What were you most surprised about?
probably the heat during the day and how cold it got at night. And I also was surprised about there was actual Afghanistan people working on the bases. Nice people, but I was surprised to see, that they had. But I think it was a contractual issue with the government that we had to hire so many local people.
So you had to interact with those folks.
For sure. What an experience, though.
Was that difficult? I mean, they had the language barrier?
Actually, what's strange is it's, here us Americans think we know it all, and yet all these other countries can speak English. Even the locals can speak a little English, but can we speak any of their languages? I mean,
sure.
I worked for all these different countries from the Balkan areas, and they all could speak English, which was not their primary language, but they're all speaking somewhat English, and even the locals could speak a little bit of English.
Anything else that surprised you about the relationship between you and these other cultures?
No, I was one of the older people there, elder statesmen with their gray hair and stuff. And
well, at that point, how old were you?
I was 62 and 3.
Oh.
And they called me Baba, which is father figure. And a lot of them, that was my name, Baba. But, and they respected me because of my age, and they didn't think I should be working. My helpers wouldn't even let me carry my own bag, because of my age. Life expectancy over in Afghanistan is very, very low for a male. It's like 35, 40 years old because of all the wars they've had. And, but it was an experience of a lifetime to me.
What kind of quarters did you have over there? Where did they put you up in?
We slept in 10-man tents, just like the military.
Oh, you did?
And we were able to make our little cubby holes with cardboard and plywood and lights. I mean, we had heat and we had AC. But just to show you how cold it could get, one night I had a can of pop, a Coke, on my nightstand, and next morning it was frozen. That's how cold it got.
So I'm guessing you wore your socks to bed.
Oh, and they upped the heat with booster fans, but it was an experience of a lifetime.
Now, you mentioned earlier that there were some electricians from Europe who were there as well with you?
The English, we had English electricians because of the European power that was on base, and the Americans were, it was in the contract it said you either had to be a U.S. Electrician or English electrician because of the European power, and there was also 110, 220 normal American power. So, and one of my best friends that I got to meet real close was a young man named Billy Broadbent from Manchester. So, and over there they love their football, which is really soccer. And yeah, it was good experience. He had my back.
You know, that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. In that unique situation that you were in, it's almost inevitable you'd make some friends that would last a long time.
Oh, we contact each other all the time. I get from Kosovo, I have 2 or 3 people that we contact on Facebook and stuff like that, and young ladies that work there also from Macedonia and stuff like that. We contact each other on their birthdays, and I was really fortunate. And yeah.
Other than the language thing that you already described, was there anything else that you found particularly enlightening about your relationship with other cultures over there?
No, they are just like, I mean, if you treated them nice, they treated you nice.
Sure.
And they're good people. And one thing they do like is their Turkish coffee. I don't know if you've ever had Turkish coffee, but it's like mud, and there's about that much in a cup. And they drink that, and they smoke their cigarettes, and I'm thinking, whoa, you know, but...
You're awake the rest of the day with that for sure. Huh?
They'd always say, how about Turkish coffee, Bobby? I said, no, not today, but...
Yeah. How was your relationship with the military? I mean, you being civilian, military being military.
Good and bad. The good was that we were there to help them out electrically, make sure everything was running fine, but they also knew we were making pretty good money. And they, you know, compared to what they were making. We heard about it. You could hear stuff in the background once in a while, but all in all, they knew that we were there to help them out, and it was overall pretty good.
There's still a fair amount of contractors there like that, aren't there?
Yes, they are, but they cut way back. And because supposedly the pullout, they were going to have a pullout, you know, but I don't know if, I think with our new president, I think he was adding more troops back there. I'm not sure, but...
It's frightening for those people because it's risky.
It is. We had contractors that were killed, but they were also ones that had to travel off base.
Yeah. So you were getting close to the end of your agreement with the company, and you were scratching your head thinking, should I or shouldn't I? What was going through your mind?
Well, I was pretty well set after 2 years. I had enough. Fortunately, I was able to Skype every night with my wife. I wouldn't have done it 2 years if I hadn't been able to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, that made the world of difference that I could still see her and talk to her every night. And then that enabled me to change my mind to stay 2 years. But I had enough. I mean, my grandkids were growing up. I didn't want to miss that. And my family means the world to me.
One thing I forgot to ask you about was what you did for a good time over there, because really you did have some good times. They gave you, they put you in a position where you had some unique opportunities. Actually, you hooked up with your wife and
we did. Yeah, we traveled. We traveled down to the Bahamas, to Cancun, Canada. We went throughout. I wanted her to meet me in Dubai one time, but she didn't want to.
Yeah, and how did that work? They let you have kind of like a leave every so often?
Every 90 days, because of the stress factor on us.
Yeah.
We had a paid R&R to go home, basically.
Yeah, but you're back here, safe and sound.
Yep.
The kids are doing fine.
Fantastic.
The wife's doing fine, and Bob's doing fine.
Yep.
And you and your son and your
We're doing
granddaughter.
Good. I've been blessed.
You've got the electrical business
doing real well.
going strong.
Yep.
Yeah.
And got some of the family work involved in it. My daughter-in-law, my grandkids, and of course my son. And we're doing great.
If you had the opportunity, would you change anything?
Not a thing.
Yeah. Thanks for being with us.
Well, thank you very much.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah, I appreciate
Bob
it.
McFarland.
Thank you.
See you next time.